You could have heard this episode 48 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early, gain access to our Discord server, and get yourself an Indieheads podcast sticker. All of our upcoming episodes will be up on our Patreon 48 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we want to thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank all of our Real Ones patrons, including Becca NTN, Georgia Mikowski, James Boss, Marcy Anime, James Beholdup, Delaney Mothman, Josiah Duncan, Jenna, Matt Cameron, Grant the Back of My Dragula, Javon Clement, Jamie Alward, Teague Christie, Charles, Nicole Rifkin, Tim's Discount Prices, Jay, Rena, Ian, Matthew Taylor, I Like Books, Sarah Moore, Griff, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Cal50, They Don't Snapped Away Half My Donger, Chris Wade, Midwest Maxwell, Jake Wald, Grant, Keep Autism Weird, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Zach, Gav Variety Freak, and Maze Farms. And if you want to be amongst these names, consider supporting us on Patreon, where if you upgrade to the Real One tier, you'll receive a bonus episode every month on top of other perks. And before we move into the episode, I just want to thank the rest of our Patreon supporters like Jason Daphnis, Kevin Cookman, Chudas, John Hayes, Nato, Robin Parlow, Eric Chow, Josh, Holiday Kirk, Tyrone Shahan, Jane Amjadi, Alexis Davin, Cody Gagan, Barely March, Minka LaFleur, Will Griffin, Corbin Camage, Gavlin, Matthew, Ethan Sapir, Matthew McPherson, Rainey Donaldson, Eleanor Grams, Elizabeth King, Wilford Thrill, Kioris420, Lily, Jacqueline Kataga, Alec Felder, Talks to Trees, Molly O'Brien, AJ Moser, Matthew Herring, Jack Tiggleman, Sarah L., Jeremy Bull, Alex Kirchmanoff, and Derek Pemberton. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Indieheads podcast. It is me, Matty Monroe, joined with Natalie here, and we have a very special guest on this podcast. Of course, we did an episode about a year and a half ago called MTV Days Before the MTV Craze. One of my favorite episodes that we've done, going through sort of the first year or so of MTV, sort of before MTV fully took off proper, and at the time we're sort of playing a lot of new and emerging artists, stuff they probably would not have played otherwise. And one of the artists that we talked about was Hilly Michaels and his track Calling All Girls, which immediately became a favorite amongst me, Natalie, and Grant, who are on that episode, and just immediately fell in love with the track and sang its praises endlessly. And around the time the episode came out, we got a comment from Thomas, who is on the call with us, but is more or less just observing, saying, "Hey, thank you for shouting out Hilly. I'm friends with him. I'm going to send him this episode." And then about a month ago, I get a message from Thomas being like, "Hey, Hilly wants to do an interview on the podcast. Like, can we set this up?" And I was like, of course. And so, he gives me Hilly's number. I give Hilly a call. We chatted up, and here we are now. Hilly, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, listeners. This is Hilly Michaels, and I am ready for the latest and greatest podcast with my very admired podcasters, Matt and Natalie, and Grant. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, Hilly, we are so glad to have you on the podcast. And Natalie, did you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I'll just say that, like Maddie, I was just overjoyed when we were getting the feedback that we got from Thomas and the opportunity to connect. As Maddie said, as soon as Grant specifically, who was the one who made that playlist and unfortunately couldn't be here on the call with us here today, but we're continuing on in their honor, and really just immensely grateful to Grant for bringing the song and Hilly into our lives. But from the moment that we recorded that podcast and we're prepping for it, I just remember being really especially taken with that song, and I'm sure we'll get into the music video with the rotoscoping, and from there on it became something that I was just really kept returning to over and over. And so when we got word that Thomas was looking to set this up and that Hilly was interested. It like Maddie said, it like really just thrilled me. I'm so pleased to be sitting here with an artist that I've really come to love after being introduced for the last year and a half. So, Hilly, a real great honor to be sitting here and chatting with you.
Oh, shucks. Thank you very much.
Well, all right, Hilly. I guess my first question for you. Let's just go back to the very beginning. What got you into music in the first place? Got you into just being a fan of music, and then playing music, later on in in your younger years.
Well, that's a good question. And I owe a lot of it to my older sister, who used to bring home piles and piles of Motown records in the 60s. And she just inculcated me with so much cool Motown music and pop hits. And I think when I was in sixth grade, me and two other guys decided to put a band together. We were called the Barnyard Trio. And we got up in front of our classroom, and during my lunch break, I had written my first original song called "I Heard a Quack in the Yard," and before we performed it in front of the class. It was a big success, and then we went to an auditorium special, and we're all sitting there, and there's a stage, and I see four of my friends. The Beatles had just come out, and I see four of my friends on stage, and they're playing Beatles songs. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't know David played drums. I didn't know Mark played guitar. And I thought to myself, if these guys could do it, I could do it too. I want to do this. So everything was like moving really quickly around that time, 64. My parents had brought me to see the original Broadway cast of Bye Bye Birdie. This is right before the Beatles hit. And I'm watching, Dick Van Dyke on stage, and Paul Lynde and Elaine Strick. I think that's her name. And this guy in a gold lame suit, which is, of course, the takeoff on the Elvis character. And all these guys and girls are swooning, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Why are boys swooning over this guy? And on the way out to the theater, I'm tugging on my father, and Daddy, why are boys swooning and in love with this guy in a gold suit? So he bought me the Bye Bye Birdie album, which is a takeoff on all the Elvis songs. And I was listening to that. And then the Beatles, of course, came out. And, to backtrack, I saw my friends performing Beatles songs. And my parents broke down and bought me a stripped down drum set, and a 13, 14-year-old guitar player friend of mine used to come over all the time, and we would just run through songs. weekends, summers, to the point where I was good enough and I started playing in a cover band. And that went on for a few years. And Michael Bolton was from my town. And when we were about 15, 16, Michael sounded like Joe Cocker when he was like 14, 15 years old. So I knew that someday Michael was going to be huge. And I began playing with Michael Bolton, and it was like acid pop songs. And Michael actually had a record deal when he was 16. Anybody in New Haven who knew anything about music or anything knew that Michael Bolton was kissed by God twice and that he was definitely going to take off someday, including me and my friends that supported him were in his backing band. And then we played covers around New Haven. And now I'm a late teen and playing with Michael Bolton. Went to Woodstock, the first Woodstock, came back, and we're sitting in Michael's bedroom. We record 3 or 4 demos. I'm playing bongos. And there was a bass player. Michael was playing guitar. He had 3 originals. We recorded them, sent them out to a friend of ours in California who called us up. We're like 18, 19. And he calls us up and he said, listen, I played that demo tape you guys did to a production company, and he's going to get Michael and you guys signed. Come out to California. So we all hopped on a plane, flew to California, and met with this producer, Michael Z. Gordon, Dimension Music, and we signed a production contract with him, and we got signed to a record company called Pentagram Records. We were tracking at Sound City Studios in Van Nuys, California, one of the most talked about legendary studios in the world. And we were tracking 5, 6, 7 songs for our soon to be released record. And we were called Joy at the time. And the song sounded great. Unfortunately, the record company folded, and suddenly we had no release date, but we had this great music. And I met these 2 other guys signed to the same production company, and they sounded very much like the Beatles. And they heard my drumming, and they said, we want you to go to New York, join the band, and play on the single and join the band. And I said, okay. I loved their music. It was great music. And they were, at the time, they were called Peach and Lee, and went to New York, cut the single called Hold On, and said my farewells to Michael. I said, Mike, I'm joining this other band and blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, no, don't go. And I said, I got to follow my dream. And these guys, have a deal, and they sound like the Beatles. And I'm sorry, Mike. So after we cut the single, Peach and Lee went back to Omaha, Nebraska, and I flew back to Omaha and waited for the single to break, which it did not. And we had to put a cover band together. And we started playing around the Midwest, not as Peach and Lee. We had another name. I can't even remember. I think we went through three name changes, but it was kind of like depressing being living in Omaha, Nebraska, and playing these county fairs, and all you saw for miles when you were driving were like farms and corn, and not too cool. One interesting moment, though, when I was in Omaha, this had to be like 72. We're all sitting in a car at night listening to the radio, and suddenly I hear a Sparks song, Wonder Girl. And I screamed to the guy in the front seat. I said, "Don't turn that dial. Turn it up. Who is that? What is that? Oh my God. Oh my God." And I listened. I heard Wonder Girl and Sparks for the first time. And I was completely bowled over and captured by that song. And it just stuck with me for years and years. But anyway, I'll cut to after being in Omaha, playing in a cover band with Peach and Lee. I went out to California with them, and we were living in an office floor. What was the name of the place? It's a really famous place. Anyway, upstairs from us was a 4-track or an 8-track recording studio. And myself, Arliss Peach, and Larry Lee, we cut about 22 songs, very, very Beatles sounding. And nothing happened to the recordings. A guy from London Records heard it, and he sent us out on some grueling 3-4 month tour in the Southwest, and Vail, and Aspen, and New Mexico. And I went back to California, and I was really disenchanted. Oh, and I changed my name to Dewey Martin. So I'll get back to that. Yeah, I went through several name changes, and Dewey Martin was one of them. So I packed my bags in like 1973 and flew back to Connecticut and hooked back up with Michael, who was working on his second RCA record. And he asked me to drum for the album. And we were rehearsing. And I remember going home and writing a song for his record. I don't know how. I guess when I was in the Barnyard Trio, I realized I could write songs. So I went home and banged out a song on my pillow, brought to the Bolton rehearsal for a second RCA album. And me and the piano player banged it out. And it was called Every Day of My Life. Michael heard it. And he said, "Hilly, you wrote that?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Wow, that's amazing. Great." And we went to Montreal. We cut his second album. And what should the album be called? Every Day of My Life. They selected my song from all the tracks, and Michael was beside himself, because Michael fancied himself, the main singer-songwriter. And what's Hilly Michaels doing? Writing a song, and now my album is called Every Day of My Life. And Jesus, Hilly. During this time, we finished the record in Montreal, went back to Connecticut, and we're at the rehearsal house, and in walks Mick Ronson and his wife, Susie Ronson. And I thought, oh my God, what is Mick freaking Ronson doing here? And Mick Ronson had heard about Michael's powerful voice and came down to New Haven to check him out. And because when I was living in California, I used to walk down the Strip and see billboards for Slaughter on Fifth Avenue, with Mick with the tear running down his face. And I love David Bowie, and I was totally knocked out with Mick Ronson. I idolized Mick for his looks, his guitar playing, and now I'm face to face with him, sitting in a room talking, and he knows we're going off to a gig, and he meets us at the gig, and we play, and I never saw him again. But the keyboard player who had put this all together, who knew Mick in New York, pulls me aside and he says, Hilly, listen, I'm working with this girl, Cherry Vanilla, and Mick's going to be her guitar player. I got to put a band together, and you got to be the drummer on this. And come to New York and play for this girl that I've written 10 songs with, and her name is Cherry Vanilla. And he gave me some background on her, and I said, sure, all right, I'll do it. And I went to New York and got to a dark loft, and I saw amplifier cases with Mick Ronson stenciled all over the amplifier cases. And I said, oh my God, this is for real. And Mick Ronson's going to be the guitar player. And oh my God. And then Cherry comes out of a room with bright red hair and smiling. And the story about Cherry Vanilla is she used to be a Manhattan, Manhattan ad executive. And then she got hooked up with Andy Warhol and starred in his production of Pork. And when she was in England performing in a theater, Andy Warhol's Pork, Andy Warhol was a big deal worldwide. Mm-hmm. And I guess after a show, Cherry went to a club and she sees David Bowie on stage playing a 12-string guitar. And she was with some friends, and they said, oh my God, we got to do something with this guy. We got to tell this one and that one all about this guy, David Bowie. So essentially, Cherry Vanilla discovered David Bowie, and she became his publicist. If you read interviews, and the interviewer was asking David Bowie questions in print, they were actually talking to Cherry Vanilla, and she was like David Bowie's alter ego. So Cherry was with the Bowie crew for a few years, and she had a lot of connections and contacts through Andy Warhol and David Bowie and Spiders from Mars, and that's where the Mick Ronson connection comes in. So, yeah, Cherry comes out of a room, and Patrick sits at the piano, and we run through tune after tune after tune, and it sounded fantastic, but no Mick Ronson. And I kept saying, "Where's Mick Ronson? Where is Mick Ronson?" And they said, "Well, we're not sure if he's going to actually be doing this, and we have another guy." So the other guy was like a Mick Ronson lookalike, and he was a good guitar player. Actually, to tell you the truth, he was a friend of mine, and I had actually brought him to the Cherry Vanilla first audition. I brought him with me. I said, "Billy, you should come and do this. You know, Mick Ronson's, going to be the main guitarist, but, you'll be a good second guitar player." So there's no Mick Ronson. It's just me, Billy, the Mick Ronson lookalike, and this bass player he played as good as Jaco Pastorius, and Patrick was on the piano, and Cherry was singing, and we put a full set of music together, and we got booked at a club in New York called Trudy Heller's, and it's where the underground of New York would go to see unusual acts. And believe me, we were an unusual act. And we were playing there a month, 2 months, 3 months, standing ovations, and we had so much freaking makeup on, and we had matching costumes. We sounded fantastic, and but Cherry wanted us to wear makeup and do the whole glam thing like the Spiders. So I would put on tons of eyeliner, tons of mascara, and do my face up. And during the course of our set, it would be dripping down my face. And towards the end of this, we only played one club. We were like the house band at Trudy Heller's, but we packed them in twice a week for 3 or 4 months, and Cherry was getting better and better, and the band was getting better and better. And one night after our second set, we're in the dressing room, and in walks Mick Ronson, finally. And I was so taken back. I was like tongue tied. And there he is, Mr. Spiders from Mars, my idol, the guy I used to dream about playing with when I was walking down Sunset Strip, staring up at his billboard. There he is, Mick Ronson. And he pats me on the shoulder, and he says, "Hilly, you played fucking great. Wow, you're an amazing drummer." And he looks at me, he starts laughing. And I go, "What's so funny?" And he goes, "Hilly, you're wearing too much makeup. He says, it's dripping down your face." He said, I never even wore that much makeup when I was with David. He said, you got to lighten up on that makeup, mate.
I was gonna say,
Said,
coming from that time too.
yeah, this was 1974. And look, when I go into a project or whatever, I really go heads deep. And Cherry was all for makeup, and I got carried away with the makeup. And at least it made Mick Ronson crack up. And before he leaves, he says, "Hilly, listen, if you need a gig, when this is over, when you're finished with Cherry," he says, "give me a call." And am I allowed to swear on this?
Oh yes.
Yeah. He says, "Listen, you're fucking great. You're fucking amazing. Fuck Ainsley Dunbar." He says, "You're going to be me new drummer." And I said, "Really? Really? Fuck Ainsley Dunbar? Oh my God." He thinks I'm better than Ainsley Dunbar. So the Cherry Vanilla thing ran its course. And I called up Ronson, and he said, "Come over." And he was living in a brownstone, a 4-story brownstone. He was living there with his wife, Susie Ronson, and a friend of ours, Danny Shea. And the first floor had a full rehearsal room in there. And, drums, baby grand, amps, everything. And Mick told me, he said, "Listen, I want to start a band with you, and let's look for some players, another guitar player, a bass player." And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to, Mick." And I can't commute back and forth to, from Connecticut. And he goes, "Stay here, live here. We got plenty of bedrooms." So I'm living with Mick and Susie and Danny, and me and Mick would wake up and go down to the rehearsal room and just jam every day, just the two of us, and then go out at night and scour the New York club scene and look for the missing members. And this went on for like 7, 8 months. And I'm living with Mick and writing songs with Mick, and we just became fast friends, and we had some kind of simpatico between us. And he used to love my jokes, and he used to love to laugh, and we got on great. So John Cougar comes over to the loft one day, John Mellencamp, and he's talking to Mick, and I'm just sitting there, and he's talking about his first record. And he says to Mick, "Do you know any good drummers?" And he says, "Yeah, my drummer right there, Hilly." So a week later, I'm invited to play on John Mellencamp's first record, which was at the time was called John Cougar. And I played on the title track, Chestnut Street Incident. And I did that record, and still writing and playing with Mick, and trying to help him put his Mick Ronson band together. Now, I'm with the most important musician in my life, Mick Ronson. And I think he's the greatest guitarist in the world at that point. And I was in seventh heaven, living and working with Mick, and he'd grab his guitar case. I'd say, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going over to Van Morrison's house." Oh, okay. Next day, where are you going, Mick? Oh, I'm going over to Roger McGuinn's house. It's like, Mick, are you sure you want to start a band? It doesn't sound like you need work. And so one afternoon, we're just sitting around, and his roommate Danny yells up, "Hey, Ronson, those Sparks guys are here. Should I let them in?" And Mick goes, "Yeah, let them in." And I said, "Sparks, that band, Wonder Girl. Oh my God, oh my God." And they walk up, and we're all sitting in the lounge room, and they're asking Mick to, would you produce our next album? They had just finished Propaganda, moved back to the States, and they came over to ask Mick to produce and play guitar on the record. And I'm sitting there with Sparks and Mick Ronson, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, am I dreaming this?" And then Ron and Russell say, "You know of any good drummers?" Here it is again. and Mick points to me and he goes, "Yeah, my drummer. That's Hilly. He's fucking great." And they go, "Oh, hi. Okay, yeah, great. Hey, is there a place we could jam right now?" And Mick goes, "Yeah, I have a full rehearsal room on the first floor." And they had Sal Maida with them from Roxy Music. And I had never met Sal before, but he had come over to the loft with Ron and Russell. So we all marched down to the rehearsal room, and Ronnie sits behind the baby grand and starts playing Big Boy and Everybody's Stupid and Throw Away and Get a New One. And we are just playing our asses off. And Mick is arranging the songs, and Russell is just singing so great. And Sal and I are gelling like we were a rhythm section, for 10 years. We just clicked so hard and so fast. And here we are jamming on the future Big Beat songs. And it sounded amazing, absolutely amazing. And there was electricity in the air. And Ron and Russell shake my hand and tell me how much they enjoyed playing with me. And we said our goodbyes, and they leave. And I'm sitting along with Mick, and I go, "Mick, you're going to produce the next album and play guitar." I said, "Here's our next band. We don't have to look for another, the Mick Ronson band. Just step into the lead guitar part with Sparks and Sal and me on drums." And Mick is looking kind of like off in the distance out the window, and he's going, yeah. I don't know, Hilly. I don't know. So I go home and visit my parents, and I get a phone call from Sparks Management. I think it was trying to remember his name. He was in John's Children. He was their manager, and he says to me, "Listen, Hilly, Ron and Russell are over the moon about your drumming, and they definitely want you as their drummer, and they want you to join the band. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be in the new Sparks band? Incredible. But I'm thinking, I'm not going to throw Mick under the bus like that after looking for guitar players for almost a year. And I let my feelings be known to John, and John Hewlett, for the record. And he says, listen, Hilly, how long have you been looking for a band with Mick? I said, about a year. And he said, how much is he paying you a week? I said, nothing. He said, listen, I'm offering you the drum seat for the new Sparks band. And you'll be paid X amount of dollars a week. You do the record and then go on tour and have thousands of screaming teenage girls ripping off your clothes and being with one of the most sensational bands in the world. And I said, well, that sounds great, John. I'm not going to commit until I talk to Mick. And he said, Hilly, you're a fool if you don't do this. Mick's going to be fine. Don't worry about Mick Ronson. Everybody in the world wants Mick Ronson. And you're going to be looking for another year with 3 months down because he's been flown to another country to produce a record. You're going to be doing this for years, Hilly. And think about doing this with Sparks. They love you. Ron and Russell love your drumming. You have to do this. I said, I'll get back to you, John. Thanks. I'm really flattered. And I went back to New York, and I'm sitting around with Mick, and he's pacing around his living room floor, staring out the window, not being very conversational. And I forgot what came first, but he says, listen, I'm not going to be producing Sparks. I go, why not? We sounded amazing the other day. Mick, why not? He said, because their management called and they feel that if I produce them and play guitar on the album, that I have to be a member of the band. So I said, so what's wrong with that? And he goes, I don't want to join Sparks, Hilly. I said, well, oh, geez, Mick, come on, please. Try it for 6 months. You know, let's do the record and do a tour and see what happens. And he said, nope, I don't want to join the band. And they will not allow me to produce it unless I join the band because no one could play the parts that I'm going to be coming up with. That's what they feel. And it kind of made sense. You know, who's going to be able to copy Mick Ronson's guitar parts? So I said, Mick, their management called me too, and they want me to do the record and join the band. And I said, no, not until I talk with you. And I'm not going to just jump ship with you because I love you as a friend. And thinking about the Mick Ronson band with me drumming and not Ainsley fucking Dunbar. And he looks at me and he goes, listen, Hilly, join the band. He says, do the record. Don't worry about me. He says, I'm asking you as a friend, do it. Play with Sparks. You've never been with a super major band before. Do the record. Join the band. He said, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. He said, I have so many calls coming in to do this, that, or the other. Don't worry about it. I want you to do it. I'm telling you to do it. I said, you're not going to be let down? You're not going to be mad at me, kind of secretly? And he said, no, I'm happy for you. I'm really happy for you, man. Do it. This is going to be great for you. So I said, okay, Mick. All right. God bless you. Thank you so much. And I started hanging out with Ron and Russell in New York. And we were looking for a Mick Ronson replacement for a couple of months. And we found Jeff Salen, and we found Jimmy McAllister. And we did a few rehearsals from the Big Beat playlist. And it sounded pretty damn good, pretty powerful. Me and Sal were like knocking it out of the park, laying down this, steamrolling rhythm section. And Jeff Salen was in the Tough Darts, a New York City kind of like punk kind of band. He played a Les Paul, as did Mick. And Jimmy was a fabulous guitar player. So one day during lunch with Ron and Russell, I'm saying, well, who's going to produce our band now? They go, it's going to be Rupert Holmes. I go, Rupert Holmes? Oh, that guy. Yeah, I know who Rupert Holmes is. He produced Sailor. And actually, me and Mick used to sit around and listen to Glass of Champagne all the time. That was like one of our favorite songs we used to listen to. And Rupert produced Glass of Champagne. He's a great producer. So they said, yeah, let's start rehearsing. And we began rehearsing. And a couple of weeks go by. And we had the bulk of Big Beat. And it was all hammered out. And then Rupert shows up and he says, okay, play, guys. Let me hear it. And we turned up to 11 and we knocked Rupert's shoes off. And he went, holy cow, that's amazing. And he walks over to my drums and he says, play another song. And he's listening to my kick drum. He's sitting down right in front of my kick drum, examining my sounds and feel. And he gets up, he goes, Hilly, you're the guy, man. Wow. You play freaking hard. That's great. And Sal, you and Sal together, oh, this is going to be amazing. So we go into Sound City recording studios on 57th in a big church-like, used to be a cathedral, a church. Huge room. And we started laying down tracks for the record. And it sounded amazing. Sounded freaking awesome. And we finished tracking. And then we were invited back to the studio to listen to the mix. And we're listening to the mix, and me and Sal are kind of looking at each other, thinking, what kind of a mix is this? This is weird. This is a weird mix. Doesn't sound anything like Propaganda, In the Street, or Come Over to My House. This is bizarre. And I guess Rupert was trying something on. I don't know. I guess it was time to go to California. And I found out from either Ron or Russell, we're calling the record Big Beat, Hilly. I said, you're kidding me. Big Beat? That's me. Yeah. That's you, dude.
Was it the kick drum? The listening to the sounds? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, wow, I'm going places. I'm with like my favorite quirky band in the world. And I've just spent a good year, 18 months with Mick, playing, rehearsing, recording, doing all kinds of stuff. And that was 76. And we all flew out to California, rehearsed, and went out on tour. And it was right around October, November. And we toured for about 3 months. And sometimes we were on the bill, Sparks and the Patti Smith Band. And I thought that was so bizarre, a pairing. What do you want to do tonight? Oh, Sparks and Patti Smith are playing on the same bill at the Luxury Theater. I mean, it was such a mismatch. It was like a Fellini concert. And some cities, there were massive, the majority of the people were Sparks fans, so we would headline a bunch of nights, and then Patti Smith had her pockets in certain cities. And we did that for 3 months, and we wrapped it up in New York, at the Santa Monica Civic on New Year's Eve. Van Halen opened up the show, and they had just gotten signed, and then Flo and Eddie followed Van Halen, and then it was Sparks. And that was our last show, our New Year's Eve show. We got sent back to our motel rooms, and I used to hang out with Ron and Russell all the time, and I thought that was so cool. I loved those guys. They were so normal and so down to earth, and they really taught me a lot about, the arts and the finer things about the arts. And I loved being with them, and I loved them as friends. And we sounded pretty awesome. There's a live show of us on YouTube. It's Sparks live at the Passaic Theater, the Passaic, New York. Sparks live doing Big Beat and all their hits. Anyway, me and Jimmy are sitting in our motel room waiting to find out if we're going to continue with Sparks or not. And out of sheer boredom, I would pick up the guitar and start writing super bubblegummy tunes just so Jimmy and I could have a laugh. And one of them was Calling All Girls. Another one was Gemini. And there was another super commercial bubblegummy song. And I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I began writing seriously at that point. And then word came down from the top that Ron Russell were going to disband the big beat lineup and try something different. And Jimmy and I were sent back to New York, and me, Sal, and Sal followed soon after. I think Ron Russell did something with involving Sal Maida, but he soon followed Jimmy and I back to New York. And we were known as like the Sparks rhythm section, Sparks backing band. So we were getting gigs and sessions, and I wanted to do something with my music. So I called up Rupert and begged him to produce some basic tracks for songs I had written. And he reluctantly agreed to come down and produce my basic tracks. And I'm playing him Calling All Girls, and I say, you got to bang on the piano, just like that Sailor song, Glass of Champagne. And he goes, oh, really, really? He goes, how's it go? And I start singing it. I got lots of money. I got lots of money. And he gives me a look like, Hilly, that's like calling all champagnes. But he, you know, it was close. It was very, very reminiscent. And I did borrow, you know, the intro, and I turned it around. And look, I'm not the first songwriter who's done something like that. So Rupert starts hammering out the piano part, and me, Sal, Maida, Jimmy McAllister, we demoed 3 of my songs, and they sounded great. And Rupert actually he showed up for another couple of sessions. I think he did 3 with me, and he really put meat on those demos. And at some point, he played me some finished tracks he had done. They sounded really commercial, and I said, "What do you do with it? What are you going to do with those songs?" He says, "What I do is I send them to Europe, and I sell them for like each song for $40,000 to different record companies, and they put a band together, and they put a different lead vocal on it and keep the track, and I make $40,000 a track." I said, "Wow, that's a great idea." And it was always in the back of my head. And now it's 1977, and there's not a lot going on. And I've got these half-finished demos, and I got word that Dan Hartman from the Edgar Winter Group was living 45 minutes from my parents' house, where I was living if I wasn't in New York, sleeping on a couch. And just on a whim, I called information when you were able to dial 411 and say, "Do you have a number for a Dan Hartman in Westport, Connecticut?" And the woman gives me 3 numbers for a Dan Hartman. And I think to myself, I'm never going to reach, you know, the rock star Dan Hartman from the Edgar Winter Group, who wrote all these hits, Free Ride and this one and that one. And it could have been the first call. Guy answers and he says, "Hello?" I go, "Hi. I'm trying to reach Dan Hartman." He goes, "This is Dan." I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for Dan Hartman. I'm sorry, the musician." He says, "I'm a musician. My name's Dan." Dan Hartman? I said, wait a minute. You're Dan Hartman from the Edgar Winter band? He goes, yeah. I said, oh my God, I can't believe this. And we had like an hour conversation, and he says, I'm trying to put a band together. And, it's going to be the Dan Hartman band. And I'm thinking, oh no, it's going to be like the Mick Ronson band. But I started telling him about myself. And I said, I just did a record in a tour with Sparks called Big Beat and a tour. And he goes, Sparks, oh my God, they're my favorite band. You were their drummer? And I said, yeah. He said, you got to come over to the house tomorrow. Can you drive up? And I said, yeah, give me the address. He said, oh my God, you're the drummer from Sparks. Oh my God, oh my God. And I'm thinking, oh my God is right. I can't believe he's flipping out over this. So I drive over to Dan's house, and he has a Victorian style mansion in a wealthy suburb of Westport. He's got a recording studio on the 4th floor. He's got like 8 bedrooms, 24-track studio, and a beautiful cutting room. And I drive up there, and Dan is watering his plants. And I said, oh my God, last time I saw you, you had a silver space suit with a bass guitar neck coming out of your belt buckle. Now I see you in shorts and watering plants. Oh my God. And we just got on like we were best friends. And he said, let's play together. And he picks up his bass and turns on his PA, and I sit behind his drums, and he says, what do you want to play? I said, let's play some Beatles stuff. He goes, let's play the entire Sgt. Pepper record from beginning to end. Do you know it? I said, yeah. And he says, okay, I'll play the bass and sing. So I said, okay, let's go. And we played Sgt. Pepper from top to bottom, and we were locked in together. And he comes over, he shakes my hand, he goes, let's start a band. And I said, great, let's start a band. And we were looking for guitar players or bass players. Dan's philosophy was, look, I could play lead, I could play rhythm, I could play bass, I could play piano. So, finding 2 missing members shouldn't be that hard. And during this time, 5-6 months looking for players for Dan, I'm living at Dan's house, and we are best of friends. And I bring my demos to him. And I said, would you mind helping me finish these demos? And he says, let's hear them. And he hears Calling All Girls and Gemini and another 2 I had cut with Rupert. And Dan goes, I love these. I love these. And I said, would you mind, finishing them with me? You could play, piano, bass, drums, guitar, whatever, help me finish them. And he said, sure. And we worked on them over a period of a month or 2, and we mixed them, and they sounded great. And I threw them in my bag, had a 1/4-inch roll of tape with my 3 demos on it. And my phone rings at my parents' house, still with Dan Hartman, and I get a call to go to a studio. There's a studio called Trod Nossel and they decided to form a record company called Big Sound Records. And a friend of mine who was equal partners in the record company asked me to come up and play drums for a few artists they signed. And one of them was this guy, Roger C. Reale, Reale. And he played bass. And I listened to his songs. And he had this guitar player by the name of George, but he preferred to be called GE. And he was in a cover band connected to the studio. But anyway, I'm still connected with Dan. We're still looking for players. And now I'm recording this record for this guy signed to Big Sound Records called Roger C. Reale. And G.E. Smith is playing guitar, and Roger's playing bass, and we cut the entire record, all 10 tracks, and G.E. was jumping up and down on top of his amplifier, and he was like the best guitar player I had ever heard. I mean, not better than Mick, but in his own way, you know, he was like a super, super flashy, could play anything. And we were a power trio, and we did all of Roger's pop tunes, and it sounded fantastic. And it kicked ass so hard. And a week or two later, my friend asked me to do another record up there by an artist by the name of Van, V-A-N, Duren, D-U-R-E-N, who sounded like Paul McCartney. And I played drums on his record called Are You Serious? Van Duren, Are You Serious? And it was like playing with Paul McCartney. Oh, very, very Paul McCartney, Emmett Rhodes. And I play the records for Dan. And Dan goes, wow, this is really, really great stuff. And I said, listen, the guitar player on the Roger C. Reale record is in a cover band. He'd be perfect for our band. So Dan said, well, ask him if he's interested. So I go back to Connecticut, and I talked with G.E. Smith. He's a super famous guitar player, in case anybody doesn't know it. And I said, listen, I've been trying to start a band with Dan Hartman from the Edgar Winter Band for the past year, and I think you would be, you know, the perfect guy to set things, you know, to solidify our quest. 16 months flying all over the country. Well, mainly, you know, back and forth to California, auditioning guitar players around the East Coast, flying to California. But we're back in Westport, Connecticut, and I bring G.E. Smith with me. And Dan, at the same time, finds a guitar player by the name of Vinny Cusano, who later changed his name to Vinnie Vincent. But this is before both of them became super, super famous. And so Dan's playing bass, and G.E. Smith's playing guitar, and Vinny Cusano, a.k.a. Vinnie Vincent, not quite yet, but he's playing awesome guitar. And we're putting a power pop band together and rehearsing for months and months. And one day we show up at the rehearsal, and Dan plays us a song that he played all the instruments on. It's a disco song. This is 1977, 78. And he plays us Instant Replay. And we went, "That's disco, Dan." He goes, I know, I love disco. And what about our power pop band? He said, "Oh, we'll do that too. And we did go out. We did go out and play a few shows as a power pop band. But Dan went to Studio 54 and got the DJ to play Instant Replay. And the place went absolutely crazy. Dan's record company, Blue Sky Records, presses up the single. It goes zooming up the charts. It's #1 in Europe, and it's zooming up the dance charts in America. And Dan's record company says, "Listen, you guys, forget this power pop band you guys are doing. You're going over to Europe for 3 months, and you're going to be lip-syncing TV shows over in Europe and France and Germany and Italy and this place and that place. And we're not going to be playing? No, you're just going to be lip-syncing to Instant Replay, Dan's disco song." And we all thought, hey, what the hell? Why not? Let's go see the world and, lip sync to a #1 song over there. And we flew over to Europe, and we were doing at least 1 to 3 TV shows every day. And just being outrageous, putting on tons of crazy makeup. And G.E. Smith is jumping all over the place. And Vinny is coming into his own. And I'm pantomiming. I'm miming like I'm on, I don't know. I'm just doing these exaggerated drumming things. Real over the top drum moves to Instant Replay. And everybody loved it. And after 3 months, we flew back to Dan's place. And the record company says, well, it's #1 now in America. And now you got to do 3 months of TV shows in America, lip syncing. And I could tell GE is not happy about doing this, and Vinny, I could never understand what he was thinking about, but I loved it. I said, why not? Let's do it. And we're doing Dick Clark and the Dinah Shore Show and Soul Train. And we did 3 months of more TV lip syncing. Jesus, 6 months of lip syncing to Instant Replay. And it got, the novelty of it was kind of wearing thin, but it was a good paying gig. And I was happy for Dan. And I was roaming. We cut an album at some point of all disco music when we got back from Europe. I think we took a month to record Dan's album of the same name, Instant Replay, all disco music. And I didn't mind doing it. I don't think GE was thrilled about it, or Vinny. They were rock guitar players, pop rock guitar players. So I'm busy, as a drummer. And somebody calls me up. Rick Derringer's wife calls me up. She said, listen, this guy, Jake Hooker, used to be in the Arrows. He had his own TV show in England. and he's a big pop star, and he's married to Lorna Luft, Liza's sister, Judy Garland's daughter. He needs a drummer to lip sync a song on the Jerry Lewis telethon. And I told him all about you, how much experience you have. And I said, okay. And I walk over, I walk up. No, I'm not walking anywhere. I taxi the apartment. I am not walking anywhere in New York. So I take a taxi to his Upper East Side apartment, and his phones are ringing off the hook. And he said, look, Liz tells me you're an incredible lip syncer, and I need someone to lip sync this song on the telephone. You have time to do it. And I said, let me look at my book here. I said, no, I can't actually. And he said, oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. And he's telling me, I'm asking him questions. You were a big pop star or something? And he managed to play me a couple of tunes and a VHS clip of his TV show in England. I said, wow, this guy really, he was playing with Mark Bolan and this one and that one. On my way out, we're saying goodbye. And I said, nice meeting you, Jake. And I said, hey, listen, you're in the pop. And I reach in my drum bag and I pull out my 1/4-inch tape with my 3 demos on it that Dan had finished up with me, which sounded awesome. I mean, anybody who heard these 3 tunes said, dude, what are you doing with these songs? Because I was trying to do what Rupert had done for about a year after I finished those songs. I was sending them to record companies over in Europe saying, look, buy my song for $30,000, $40,000. And I was getting letters back saying, no, we don't want to buy your song, but we're interested in signing the artist. And I just kept saying, no, I'm not interested. Thank you very much. So, I didn't think anything was ever going to happen with my demos. And I said to Jake, as I'm walking out of his apartment, I said, listen, do you have time to listen to my pop tunes? And he said, all right, real quick. And he puts my tape on. And he listens to about 20 seconds of Calling All Girls and everything barrels in. And he jumps up, stops the tape, and starts grilling me. Who is this? Who's singing? Who produced this? Who wrote these? I said, well, basically me. He said, this is amazing. He said, I could get you a worldwide recording contract next week. These songs are amazing. I said, yeah, but I don't want a recording contract. He said, let me take your temperature. Are you serious? What are you talking about? Why aren't you doing anything with these songs? He says, let me get you a record deal. I said, yeah, but you just signed to Geffen Records. You have your own deal. You have your new album coming out or whatever. How's this going to work? He says, well, I'll quit. I'll break my contract with Geffen and I'll manage you and I'll manage Lorna, my wife. I said, really? You'll do all that? He said, yeah. I said, okay, go get me a deal. And I wasn't really ever expecting to hear from him again. He calls me up about a week later and he says, Hilly, I got you a worldwide recording contract with Warner Brothers Music. Jerry Wexler. I had lunch with Jerry Wexler. We listened to your music, and it's a done deal. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. I got you like a super, super massive recording deal worldwide. And you guys, I'm telling you, I didn't know how to feel about this. Or, I wasn't like a struggling artist, singer guy with a band. My main goal, trying to land a recording contract. These were songs I had recorded a couple of years ago, and suddenly I'm being offered this huge deal. And I met with Jake, and he said, look, I'm going to be your manager, and you're going to sign with Warner Brothers. And I said, okay, but, I've been playing with Mick, and I've been asked to join the Hunter Ronson tour. I think it was 78, right around 78, 79. I said, I've committed to at least 3 months of touring with Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson. He said, okay, do it. I'll work out, all the logistics for your record deal, and go play with Mick and Ian. And then when the tour is over, you'll sign the deal, and that'll be that. And you're going to be a huge pop star. They are putting like $1 million into you. I said, oh my God, you guys, I just can't tell you how this affected me. It was like, now I'm playing with Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson again, but as the Hunter Ronson band. I just recorded Ellen Foley's debut record, Night Out. She was the girl on the Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell record, Stop Right There. And she was putting her debut record together. Mick asked me to play drums on that. And I went out and toured with Mick and Ian. And at the end of the 3 months, I said, okay, you guys, I got to get ready to do during the tour, I found out that Roy Thomas Baker, the number one album producer in the world, was head over heels with my demos and had to produce me. And I'm talking to Ian about Roy Thomas Baker, and he is going, you got the best, record label, you got the best record producer in the world. He said, you're all set, Hilly. Unbelievable. Incredible. And I stopped touring, and I was told to just lock myself up in the room and write song after song after song after song, which I did, and rehearsed them. And came time to sign with Warner's, and they gave me a contract the size of like an old-fashioned telephone book. And I said, oh my God. I think I had the best music lawyer in New York City as well. His name was Peter Shukat. And Warner Brothers they were going to sink $1 million into me. My contract was valued at $1 million, and like close to $250,000 in advance. And then Chapel Music wanted to sign me, and they were the biggest publishing company in the world, and they gave me like tons and tons of money. It was like such a shock that all this was happening. So I took it in stride, and I had met with Roy Thomas Baker a few times and had some misgivings about him producing my record. I didn't think he was the right producer for me. I thought he was a genius album producer for bands, but he had never produced a solo artist that had done anything. And I voiced that to my manager, and he said, no, you have to use Roy, because Warner Brothers is like flipping out that he is, desperate to produce you, and you have to use Roy. But I want Mike Chapman, and Mike Chapman wants to produce me. And he said, no, Hilly, it's got to be Roy. So I gave in, and even Ian at some point said, I don't think Roy is the right producer for you. I changed my mind. I said, well, now you tell me. You should have told me 6 months ago. And I had a pact. I made a pact with Dan Hartman. I said, listen, Dan, I don't think Roy is the type of producer I'm looking for. You would be a better suited producer for me, but Roy's got the name. He's done Foreigner, The Cars, Queen, Journey, Yes, Alice Cooper. But I think those guys just produce themselves, and Roy just kind of engineers and slaps the producer logo on. So I said, Dan, you and I have to produce the record underneath his nose, kind of. We gotta be real careful how we do it, because I don't think Roy knows the difference between a G or an F chord or this guitar line or that guitar. We have to produce the record like the way we know a record producer should be producing a record. So Dan agreed, and he agreed to help me and play bass on the record and help me arrange all my music before we went into record. And it was tumultuous recording with Roy Thomas Baker, because he knew what was going on. And he threw a couple of fits a few times. Who's producing this, me or you and Dan Hartman? And he packed up. He actually packed up 3 times during the record and flew back to California. And I would get a call from my manager, Jake, and he'd say, what happened last night? Roy's in California. He's pissed off that you and Dan Hartman are running away with all the ideas. I said, it's because he's not coming up with the ideas that me and Dan Hartman are coming up with. Well, you got to call him up. You got to call him up and patch it up and pacify him and tell him how great he is. And you need him. Hilly, you got to do this. And I powwow with Dan. I told him what was going on. And he flew back a few times, and I made it through the record. I got Liza Minnelli to sing on it. I don't think she's ever sung on anybody's pop or rock album before. I had an A-list of characters on Calling All Girls. And we got through the record, And it was time to do that cool video. And Jake Hooker and myself were auditioning VHS tapes that were coming in. And we saw one that was like animated. I said, that's it. I want to be that cartoon character. I got to be that cartoon character. So we found out his name was Gary Gutierrez, and he had done this animated video for the Grateful Dead. And we flew out to California, San Francisco, and went through the motions of doing rotoscoping. And he would tell me to do a movement for 20 seconds, and he would have a motor-driven camera, and he would shoot like really fast clips, 10-second clips. And it was a painstaking process. And we shot Calling All Girls, and we shot another video, Shake It and Dance. And that was fun too. And went back to New York and was waiting for Warner Brothers to deliver me a #1 hit record. And they said, well, you got to go out and tour. I said, I'm not going to go out and tour until I have a record in the charts. And it was like this battle back and forth. And I said, no, you have to put a band together and start, opening up and getting a name for yourself. And up to this point, I had never fronted a band as a solo artist. So I wasn't like this Bruce Springsteen character that was going to win over, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, whether I'd probably be opening up for people. And I just did not have the chops to do it. But I thought, if Warner's gets me a top 10 record, I'll learn to do it really quick. But I am not going to go out there for months and months and promote Calling All Girls or any other single they wanted to put out until it was in the top 10. So they were kind of disappointed I didn't do that, and I was kind of disappointed they didn't do that. And listen, I knew that Roy had essentially destroyed every song on my record. Destroyed in the sense that it wasn't my vision of how those songs were supposed to come out. And I had no control over Roy Thomas Baker. And I was not happy. I thought I was going to have 10 #1 songs before I went in to record with Roy. I said, I know every one of these. Maybe 8, okay, 7 or 8 were stone cold #1 songs. But whatever Roy Thomas Baker did during those 3 months, he just took my vision of how they were supposed to come out, and he put them in his blender, and it was not my vision. I was not too happy with the record, and I was thinking, if Warner Brothers gets top 10 record with any of these tracks, I will be really, really happy. But I think I should remix the entire album. And they said, no, you can't do that. You can't remix. And it was a contentious kind of time. And they were never able to get my songs in the top 10. The video came out. It was on every music television station. This is a year before MTV came to be. So it was being played all the time for about a year. And then MTV hit, and then they were using Calling All Girls, like it was in heavy rotation all the time, every day, every week, every month after month after month. And it was time to do my second record, Lumia, which I did. And, you guys, I felt so deflated at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But that Roy had what he had done to my vision of my songs. And I started second guessing my pop sensibilities and was like singing ballads. And I didn't really want to sing ballads, but I did the record. And Warner Brothers' approach was lukewarm. And that was it. That was it. My recording contract, Calling All Girls and Lumia, nothing charted. And then I was asked to go to Denmark and produce a band called Cliche over there.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have time for Cliche?
Again, from the stories you've told me, so Hilly, he told me a little bit about the producing of this record, and Hilly, we got time. I want you to detail the story. Listeners, the story is insane. The story of the making of this record is really, really insane. So,
I can't wait
Hilly,
to hear this.
Please take it away.
Gee, I hope the battery lasts in this thing. I'm asked to go to Denmark to produce the Talking Heads Denmark, and I arrived in 1982 off of Calling All Girls in Lumia, and I had 103 temperature for the first 3 days I was in bed. And on the fourth and fifth day in Copenhagen, I went to the band's rehearsal. They didn't speak English. And I listened to 2 rehearsals and thought they were great. Big language barrier. And I told the president of the record company, look, I'm only doing this because you agreed they would sing it in English and not just Danish. And he said, oh, yeah, they will. Well, on the fourth, fifth day, they put us on some floating barge and sent us with a 24-track mobile unit to a deserted island about 50 miles off the coast of Denmark. And it used to be a German fortified little island with one old hotel on it. And there were gun turrets dug into the sides of the beach. It was reputed to be a haunted hotel that we were living in. And it was haunted. And during the evening, the doors would slam. So, yeah, the island and the hotel, the only structure on the island, used to be occupied by Nazis. And it was really, really difficult recording this band, being their producer. because nobody could speak English. I couldn't communicate with the band. I couldn't communicate with my engineer. And this went on for 6 weeks. I got them like unbelievable sounds, incredible sounds. I had picked up tricks from Roy Baker and Dan Hartman and Rupert Holmes, production tricks. And I applied all these recording tricks to the band Cliche. And I had no idea what they were singing about. Danish sounds like backwards English. And I said, can you at least write down what the lyrics are so I know what the songs are about? Give me a break, guys. And I think they were taking the piss out of me, to be honest with you. I think they were having a goof on me, but you know, they were fucking with my head. But the other side was, yeah, do a fantastic job for us. You know, we know, you know, you have a great ear for commercial stuff, songs, and we want you to make us a #1 record here in Denmark. So I toughed it out with the band for 6 weeks on that haunted Nazi island. And I'm telling you, I was fit to be tied. And after 6 weeks tracking all the music, we got back on the floating barge and went into a land-based studio and did the overdubs. Started doing overdubs. Now, here's where it gets interesting. During this time, I meet some guy about 20 years old, and he reminded me of Mick Ronson, his character. And he invites me up to his apartment, and he plugs his guitar and starts playing. His name is Hilmer Hassig, Hassig. And I said, oh my God, I just found the Mick Ronson of Denmark, and he's got to be on the Cliche record. And I am so wildly excited. And I tell Lars Hug, the lead singer, about Hilmer in the band, and they're going, oh yeah, we know who he is, and no, we don't want him to play on the record. I said, no, you don't understand. He's got to be on the record. It's going to be like Lars Hug and the Spiders from Mars at this point. This guy is going to add unbelievable guitar work to our record, your record. And they reluctantly allowed me to bring Hilmer Hassig in, and he tracked his guitar parts. I told him where to play, what to play, but gave him all the freedom in the world. And Cliche begrudgingly allowed me to do this with Hilmer. Then Lars did his vocals. And up to this point, I haven't had a day's rest from music. I'm totally saturated. It's going on 2 months now. And Lars finishes his vocals. No sooner does he complete the last vocal, I'm asked to start mixing it immediately because Medley Records wants me to produce another band. As soon as I'm done mixing Cliche. And what I really needed was like 3, 4, 5 days of no music, no sound, and just clean out my ears to mix properly. And they did not afford me some downtime. And I tried to mix a couple of songs, and they were watching me and standing over my shoulder. And I was just really intimidated. I mixed one track on that record, International Climb Blue, on the Cliche record. And there's no vocals on it. And they did grace me by telling me what the freaking song was about. I said, "What's this song about? Please tell me." They said, "It's about God coming down with a big broom and sweeping the earth clean." I said, "Oh, wow, that's great. I wish I knew the lyrics to the other 9 songs." And so I did a few mixes. The record company didn't like them. They said, "Oh, Hilly, you can't mix." But I snuck back in the studio when nobody was around, and I did a couple of rough mixes of my own in secret, and had cassettes of them, and started producing the other band, the Delta Cross band, called Astro Boy. And then after like month 3, I said goodbye to Cliche and said goodbye to my friend in the Delta Cross band, and flew back to America. And I had found out that the record company president with the band had mixed the record and didn't use any of my mixes. And it kind of hurt my feelings, but when I got a record mailed to me and I put it on my turntable and listened to it, I said, "Oh my God, they are so off the mark. They are so off the mark." They didn't know that I put the overhead mics out of sync, and they didn't know that I was using tape saturation and phasing and flanging and doing this and that, and they blew it. If only they gave me a little time to recuperate after doing the vocals, of doing nothing except Cliche music every day for 2 months. And so, yeah, I did the Cliche record and the Delta Cross record and went back to America and just chilled out. I think I was roommates with Ian Hunter at the time. I went back to my apartment, and Ian said, "I'm doing a record. I want you to play drums on it. It's called All the Good Ones Are Taken." And I actually wrote a song on there called Fun. I did that record with Ian Hunter, and he actually charted with one of his songs for the first time as a solo artist. It was called, he had 2 versions, the slow version and the poppy version of the title, called All the Good Ones Are Taken. And I think it hit the top 40, first time for him. And then I was just wandering around New York and doing sessions. I was asked to play for the Ramones, be the drummer in the Ramones. I was asked to be Brian, what's his name? Brian, Summer of '69.
Oh, Brian Adams?
Oh, Adams.
Brian Adams. Thank you. He wanted me to play drums for him. And none of those 2 things worked out. for whatever reasons. I either said no or lost interest. And one day my telephone rings. It's Marianne Faithfull, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger's muse, who had a hit with As Tears Go By when she was with Mick Jagger all those years in the 60s. And it just so happened that I had written 3 songs with her in mind. And when she called me up, I think I had a brunch with her the year before in '83 after Ian's record. I met her and told her I had written songs with her. And she may have even come over, listened to them, and said, when I get back from my tour, I'll call you up. And she got back from her tour and called me up and came over. And we fell in love immediately and announced our engagement. And we were going to get married. And I said, Marianne, let me produce these 3 songs I put together for you. And you write the lyrics, rewrite my throwaway lyrics, and you write the lyrics, and I'll have written the music. And we went in and recorded three tracks. I go into the studio with Marianne, and I produced 3 songs for her. And she was doing absolutely nothing at the time. And she was an icon at that point, still a legendary icon. And we took the 3 songs, and her surrogate father, Chris Blackwell of Island Records, agreed to have a sit down with us and listen to the music. And he heard them, he heard the songs, and he flipped out over them. He said, wow, these are great. Marianne, you have a commercial sensibility to you. Thanks to Hilly. Oh, Hilly, I love what you did with Marianne. And he re-signed her to Island Records, and we began preparing to do a Marianne Faithfull record. And we just started writing more and more songs. And, we were so in love, me and Marianne. And she would tell me the most fabulous stories about, the Beatles and Jagger and these amazing stories you just couldn't believe. We'd be lying in bed. She'd be telling me these like fairy tale stories about, oh yeah. And me and Mick were sitting on the train, and John walked by and he sat down and he gave, and oh my God, you were like hanging out with the Beatles for all those years. And you were Mick Jagger's, super girlfriend for 3-4 years. And they wrote tons of music about you. And then you were Keith Richards' girlfriend, and he wrote more songs about you. And now you're my girlfriend, you're my fiance, and let's write a bunch of songs and do a record. So that's what we did. We wrote a bunch of music in 1984, 85. And we went into the studio. I was supposed to co-produce it with this English guy, Michael Post, or someone like that. I don't know. But Marianne was not in good shape. And her health was in great decline. And the record had to be stopped. We had tracked about 6-7 songs, and then Marianne fell down and broke her jaw, had her jaw wired shut. Now we're at year 2, the end of 18 months being together. We're not married. The record is halted, stopped, and it was never to be heard. And Marianne was in such poor condition. I had called Chris Blackwell and recommended that they send a car for her immediately and send her to a rehab center, which they did. You know, if you know anything about Marianne Faithfull, you know, you got to say, how did Hilly live through that for almost 2 years? How the hell did he live through that? Well, I did by the skin of my teeth. And to recuperate from that relationship, I went to Hawaii and stayed with my childhood best friend, who was a practicing psychiatrist. So I was in good hands for a couple of months. And that's basically it. You guys, I went back to New York and began producing as many people as I could. And in 1990, I got married. I was traveling to Sosua in the Dominican Republic a lot. And I met my wife to be there. And we got married. And in 1990, we went to Florida for a new start. Somebody backed me. They believed in my talents. And we went, we lived in Florida. And I began working for the Board of Tourism for Florida, doing marketing and getting people to come to Florida. And in 1999, nothing really remarkable about those 9 years. I got a divorce, went back to Connecticut, and began producing Michael Bolton's brother, a record he was working on. And in 2003 or 2002, I hooked up with a marketing company for the fine arts and was a marketing and development manager for the fine arts, doing 9-month campaigns for Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, the Detroit Opera House, the Detroit Symphony, the Oregon Ballet, and I'd have to, these were 9-month campaigns, and I would have to fill a marketing room with callers that would call our base of patrons and sell them subscriptions for the upcoming season. So I did that for 10 years. And I went from being like, how do you turn on a computer in 2000? But I went from zero to hero. We had 50 managers in this marketing company for the fine arts. And I was in the top 5 percentile. And they had a magazine that went out across the country to all the other managers. They found out about my musical past, and I was plastered all over the monthly newsletter. Listen to my film. He's actually, our manager is actually a rock star, you guys. And not only that, but he's rewritten the book on telesales. And, you know, I did. I really came up with amazing ideas. I would have a room of like 10 people in it twice a day. And I would teach them how to call Mr. and Mrs. Smith and not have Mr. and Mrs. Smith hang up on them. And I didn't know that I had a talent for doing that, but I did. And 2006, 8 or 9. I quit that job because I was so fried. I was working 7 days a week and just putting everything I had into it. And Michael Brown from the Left Bank was trying to convince me to start a new Left Bank with him. So I called my company and I said, listen, I'm burnt out with this marketing job. You need to replace me here at the theater. And I'm going to play music again. And the thing with Michael didn't pan out because he had some psychological issues going on. But I found another guy who had a recording studio in his basement, and he told me I could live there for 3 months and put a record together, which was essentially go through hundreds and hundreds of demos I had cut for me and put them on his computer and then do sound with sound, sound on sound, a couple of fresh tracks. And I put Pop This together, an independent release. And that was completed in 2010. And that's, I released it, and it sold several hundred units. And it was being downloaded. And I had about a year and a half of really good sales. And then I had met Thomas Ferranti at that point. And we became fast friends. He also goes by the name of Spike Beasley. And he's got music on YouTube. And he's an amazing friend, an amazing actor, and an amazing voiceover guy.
Hi. Yeah. All right. So I remember looking for you online and going, gee, what have I missed all these years? Are you still with us? And I managed to find you and got you back doing a live show, which I missed.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I missed it because he's over there and I'm over here. Yeah. You did a live show.
Tell me more about this. Was this recent?
Well, years ago. What, 2010?
2010.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So probably his last live show, right? His last live show. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Right? Yeah. It was called the Pop Overthrow something. And
international Pop Overthrow. David Bash was putting it together. He does that all over the place. I don't know if he's still doing that, but yeah, he was very popular with that. A great string of shows.
Yeah. And he called me up. He said, listen, would you be interested in doing this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And I'll sing to backing tracks, and we'll take the lead vocal out. And I did have a live bass player, so we took the bass out of most of the tracks. And I did a really bang-up show in New York City. I was like the featured artist for this international Pop Overthrow thing. And too bad nobody filmed it. So, that was the last live thing I did. And since then, to wrap this up, Thomas and I began putting our heads together, and Thomas began creating these amazing videos for a bunch of my tunes that are online. And he did some work for Cherry Vanilla as well, and Ellen Foley as well. He did my electronic press kit, which is over the top fantastic. Thomas brought me back to life over the last 13, 14 years. And he gave me a huge revived presence on the internet, thanks to Thomas Ferranti. I think it's pronounced Thomas.
Yep.
Ferranti?
Yep, got it.
Ferranti.
Either way, Ferranti. or my middle name, Danny. Danny Franny. How's that?
Danny Franny. Yeah, if anyone's listening, you got to check out Thomas Ferranti.
Thanks. I don't have much to promote, but anyone who wants to find me on Facebook, I can definitely talk to you, and we point you in some direction of some cool stuff. Yeah, I'm not really up and running much right now, but there's a lot of stuff from the past that I love to share and talk about.
Yeah. Thomas is just like exploding with talent. He could do so many creative things. It's amazing. And he brought me back to life like the Frankenstein monster.
Well, I'm a big fan. I'm glad you're still alive and kicking. I mean, I remember back when I was 16, I saw your video and I went and looked it up, got the record, and I remember seeing the video way back, like you said, on all the stations. Friday Night Video Series, it was on. All these other things I forget. There was Liquid Sky Television or something had it on. All sorts of different places I turn around, and there it was. And yet, darned if I do not remember ever having heard it on the radio. And I was so upset. I thought, what a great sound you had. I thought, why aren't people turning on to this? Why aren't other artists stealing your sound? I thought, some great, great stuff, Hilly. You never over the years, never did I ever, I got my Beatles collection, my Monkees collection. I'm the biggest fan of theirs. My 80s collection, I've got tons of stuff. And you were always a standout. It's like, damn it, this album, I got to turn people on to this music. Oh, yeah. Glad.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hey,
very, very heard, Thomas.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for keeping me alive and turning me on to this crew. Matty.
Yeah, thank you for connecting us.
Oh, can I do some shout outs?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. One of my best friends, Madeline Baccaro, Bocaro, Madeline. She just wrote a book. Oh, first, let me preface it by saying she has been president of the Sparks fan club and newsletter for the past 30 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she has come out with a book called In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. And
oh, yes, I've seen that book.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And you can get it at Conceptual Books at iCloud.com or go to her blog, MadelineX.com, MADELINEX.com. And her book is amazing. Also, Cherry Vanilla. She has a great book out called Lick Me, Lick. And without Cherry Vanilla, we would not be having this conversation because she was like my rock and roll fairy godmother. Without Cherry Vanilla, I would have never met Mick Ronson and Sparks and gotten a deal. Just unbelievable how instrumental she has been in my life. And I love her so much. And I love Madeline too, of course. So there's Cherry Vanilla Lick Me. She's at cherryvanilla.com. And then Mick's widow, Susie Ronson, who used to do the hair and makeup for David Bowie. She came up with those colors in the clothing. Susie Ronson is alive and well, and she has a book out called Me and Mr. Jones, as in Davy Jones, David Jones, David Bowie. And then there's my old buddy Sal Maida, who I talked about, one of the best bass players I've ever played with. He has a new book out, brand new, called Fourth Strings. And another writer friend of mine, he's written over 100 books, Dave Thompson. So shout outs go to Mark Doodles Friedland, Marky Doodles Hamburger, Marky Doodles, Mark Friedland. He's on Facebook. Tommy Mandel, Larry Russell, Dean Falcone, and there's Thomas Ferranti, Rupert Holmes. He without Rupert, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And of course, Mick Ronson, rest in peace. The best guitar player. In my book, the best guitar player that ever was. Jimmy McAllister, Dan Hartman, Michael Brown, Jake Hooker, Weird Al Yankovic for playing my Calling All Girls video all the time when he was a guest VJ at MTV.
He also satirized.
Amazing!
He also satirized your Calling All Girls. I forget the name of the song. I think it's called "I Remember Larry."
Yeah, I remember Larry. Yeah, I did a takeoff of my song,
Calling All Girls.
right?
Yeah.
And of course, Ron and Russell Mael. I love them so much as friends. And they have a documentary out called The Sparks Brothers. And I could be seen in that documentary. And there's a shout out to George Kajangas, the man who wrote Glass of Champagne for Sailor.
Who was responsible for the Sparks Brothers documentary? It's a famous name. The guy
Edgar
who did
Wright.
John. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. He interviewed me for like 2.5 hours, and I made the cut. It was interesting, and what's his name again?
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, incredible director. He did Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver, and he did the Sparks documentary. Another great documentary is for one of the artists I mentioned, which I could be seen in. It's called Van Duren. Are You Serious? The documentary. And if you like the Beatles and Paul McCartney, you'll love his music. And I'm playing drums on his pivotal first release. They actually made a documentary about him. And yeah, I think that's it. Cherry Vanilla, Madeline Beccaro, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. Unbelievable book. Just absolutely mind-boggling. It's so cool. And I think that's it, guys. I think we covered everything. Your questions were amazing.
Yeah, I think they're just glowing, taking in all this information. But yeah, behind the scenes, I was feeding little things that I thought would pique their curiosity. But no, they're polite. That's
Yeah.
quite all right.
We'll have to probably include some of these factoids in as like bonus material somehow and like thread them in because there's some cool stuff, but I didn't want to
Yes.
interrupt all the like really wonderful storytelling that
Oh,
Hilly
thank you.
was
Thank
going
you.
on with.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be on the show. And thank you so much for allowing me to tell a story. And what a story. You know, before we roll tape, I thought about my life and I see it as like a bumblebee going from flower to flower to flower to flower to flower and just soaking up the best out of all these amazing different uh, uh, circumstances and opportunities I was in, I had, and yeah, never really, wanted to be, that amazing drummer all my life, or a recording artist all my life, or a marketing guy all my life, or a producer guy all my life. I did so many cool things, and I'm happy that you have it on tape and uh, edit away if you like. And thank you guys, and thank you, Thomas,
Sure.
for
And
hooking me up with him.
yeah, and since your albums are not officially available, I have put them up on Bandcamp. If anyone wants to contact me, I can send you links if you don't want to search around for them. And then, of course, there's a dozen or more videos up on YouTube of your Pop This Stuff videos that I made for you. But I don't think we're really centralized. But we got to, anyone wants information, just let me know. I can send it uh, to your podcast peeps there, and you can spread the word if you want.
Yeah, we can absolutely get those links in the description of the podcast. Thank you guys
Great.
both so much for joining us, Hilly. Thank you so much.
Yes.
This was a journey hearing your story.
Yeah, and it's great to get the full history just out there and to hear it in such detail. I know I speak for both of us when we're really grateful to have you come on to our show and chat with us about this. And I know that if Grant were here, Grant would say the same.
Thank you very much. Give my best to Grant, and
Absolutely.
I will be in touch with you. And I think I still have all the information you gave me when we first spoke, Matty.
Yes.
And yeah, nudge, wink, and whatchamacallit, what else? Yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm going to collapse now. I don't think I've talked this long since I was a marketing director. Talking to a room full of kids every day. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed the stories. I tried to keep it, moving along, but again, so much stuff happened from 1974 to 2010. I felt like I was in a speeding rocket with my seatbelts on, and it was just go, 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 go. Just say yes to everything. So this is Hilly Michaels wishing everyone a beautiful life and an upcoming Halloween and an upcoming Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And may all your dreams come true, and good health, peace, and happiness to all.
Yes, and I agree. And I know this might sound strange. And I don't know, it might sound strange, but that's all I can say.
And really, what more can you say?
Exactly.
Myself a penthouse, filled it up with bubbly wine.